Thank you. Well, as you can see, Beth is not Beth. It's Pat, and I'm certainly not Colleen. So we're not as pretty as we normally are here, but with these two faces. But as you know, as you may not know, Colleen's away on vacation this week, a very, very well-deserved vacation. She had a very busy year last year, and she's unwinding with some family and friends, probably some new friends down in Key West. So she's having a good time and enjoying the sun. She'll be back with us probably late Monday, and hopefully a quick quarantine, and she'll be back out there. Today's topic, we're going to talk about apartment make-readies, and this for my new clients that are getting into investment properties. Boy, this is something I'm questioned about all the time. How much do I need to do to the apartment before it's rentable? What do I need to do maybe to prep it even for a C of O, as in work that needs to be done? A lot of people don't want to go too far. They want to get tenants in that unit as quickly as possible. So they want to be able to get the work done, start showing it, get it rented, get folks in there, start the revenue going. So today we are joined by Pat Gallagher. Pat's going to talk about that. What do we need to do for make-readies, and how far do we need to go with that to get ready? And then after Pat talks, we're joined by David Knapp, and Dave's going to talk about the other side of it. We were just discussing before this call started, I got a bunch of clients that need to do some painting, exterior painting on some of their units and some of their houses. And Dave knows all about that and what needs to be done, and the best way to go about it. So Dave will be talking, Dave the paint guy will be talking about those issues. So without further ado, Pat, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, sounds good. Sorry, I'm in my same t-shirt as last night. So Brent Conley, the Brent Conley?
That's the one.
Yeah, how the heck are you doing?
Are you the Pat Gallagher?
Brent was my soccer coach when I was a teenager.
Man,
oh, really?
You don't look like a wild man now, but you were one wild man back in those days.
Well, Father Time caught up with me, so.
Yeah. Well, we followed similar paths, Pat and I, through soccer, through similar kind of work that he did in the past and I did in the past, and now to me being involved in real estate too.
Excellent. Very good. Great. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Well, today I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things. Hopefully you don't mind, Brian. Yeah, we're definitely going to cover make-readies, but more on the, I guess, on the property management perspective too. We deal with a lot of clients, a lot of owners. Of course, we do make-readies and C of Os and all that good stuff. But of recently, and I try to share stuff with everybody, what I see, what I hear. Recently, we've had a few owners come to us that, number one, are selling. And they're selling because they're not making money. And when I look into their portfolios, the common denominator is they're paying too much. The other common denominator is they're not accounting for deferred maintenance and repairs. Okay, so we're having people not only just local, but from all over, not knowing the market as far as C of Os and Section 8s, not knowing what it takes to keep a property compliant and filled. And they think they can come in here because our prices are low, which nationally our prices are still low. And now, of course, when they underestimate those costs and we give them quotes and we do work, and then they put pressure back on us. And, of course, we want a place that is going to be good for the tenant. So the tenant pays rent. So there's not violations on the property. And it's pretty much like I predict what's going to happen next. Either they're going to leave us and go somewhere else, or just leave altogether. One particular owner started to get tenants, and we didn't know about it when we're in charge of getting tenants. And when owners start cherry picking work and so forth, and while they're remote, you can see the writing on the wall. You know, they're just not making it. So you definitely want to make sure you have a good real estate professional when you are looking at homes and you're buying homes. And number two is the maintenance and cost. I tell our clients that we have that no matter who you use to buy the homes, if you're really serious about getting one or two homes and you're going to put an offer in, make it obviously contingent on an inspection, make it on your partner looking at it first. Your partner could be me. All right. So I don't charge our clients that we manage for, and I walk through, and I'm a different perspective than the engineering people. Okay. Yes, I look at structural as well, but I'm also looking at violations. I'm looking at CVO Section 8. I'm looking at the tenant. I'm looking at the configurations of the kitchens and bathrooms. And then I'm looking at what rent is, what rent can be or could be. And of course, deferred maintenance. Okay, so I'm pretty good at picking out what's going to have to be addressed in 6 months or a year or 5 years. And then you make a good decision. I'm not going to tell you it's bad. I'll put it all out there, the pros and cons, what I see, and then we take it from there. All right. I had another client that was through a realtor coming in here and looking to buy something in a war zone. So I didn't recommend that. You know, if you're an experienced investor and primarily local experienced investors, war zones are fine. But that's after you've been here for a while, you understand how it works, you understand in the zones that you can collect rent for 12 months and then have no rent for 6, and then collect for 12 again. You have to understand that. And as long as you have those expectations, you know what you're doing, you have some experience, let's go to the war zone. Okay. I have properties in the ghetto. They're doing quite well. When they take that downturn, I don't get all upset because that's what happens. Okay. So of course, when you buy those properties, and again, I can fix them myself. Right. So that's what you have to understand. You have to buy those properties right. And you have to lower your expectations. You rehab them a little differently. You want to make them a little more bulletproof because the tenants are typically going to be harder on those properties. And you might have some more turnover. Okay. So you want to make sure when you do the rehab, you do it accordingly, because if not, it's just going to be a money drain. Okay. So, but as far as make readies, when we're looking at homes, I look at obviously the rent coming in, expenses going out. We can all do that. And if it looks pretty good as far as those numbers, you got to look at the roof. Okay. The roof is probably your biggest expense on the house. Now, is the roof a re-roof? Is it a tear-off? Big difference. If it's a re-roof, that means it probably has cedar shake underneath and 2 or 3 or 4 up to 7 layers over that. These are city homes, and some of these people prior to us would just keep throwing layer after layer on. So that affects the total cost. If it's going to be in your hands, it's not just a normal tear off with cedar, it's a tear off with 6 other layers. So you got to make sure you get an accurate estimate on the roof. The roof could really sink you. Again, if you're thinking it's 5,000 and it's 10 or 12,000, we're already in the hole. Okay, and especially now, shingles per square, our roofer said went up $7 per square. That means for every 3 bundles of shingles, it went up $7 per 3 bundles. And of course you have the OSB, which is the, what's not plywood, was OSB, was the underlayment. That went up a lot in price. So roofing is very high right now. So obviously look at the roof first. Windows are the next thing that I look at. And with windows, I definitely prefer vinyl windows. Vinyl windows will pass Section 8 C of O. You're not going to have lead paint in the tracks. It's the right way to go. Yes, window prices have went up. So you have to see what the prices are for windows and multiply by how many windows that you need. Okay, so some people do not replace windows. They just don't do it. They'd rather paint them and go through inspections. And keep in mind, if you're going to do that, you're going to keep your existing wood windows. Just make sure that they have storms and screens. So at times, I'll have some wood windows that are stained, the typical stained finish wood windows that don't appear to be too bad. But if you're missing half the storm windows and half the screens, by the time you go track them down and try to find them and get them in place for the inspection, is it worth it? For me, it usually isn't. For me, I'll go through and measure 15 to 20 windows. I order the windows. And as a matter of fact, I've been ordering all my windows from Depot now, Home Depot. So I was using Allied, I was using ABC, but I found that Home Depot, since we do quite a bit of volume, we get some good discounts there. And the windows, the turnaround time is around 3 weeks, which is very competitive to the other places. And Depot is very good to deal with if you have warranty issues or if there's anything going on. I find them to be very good. So Depot has been good for windows. And then of course, when you look at the roof and windows, kitchen and bathroom, and then you have the furnace and water tank. Water tanks just went up. Our price went up $75 per water tank. All right. So again, make sure you know what those cost. And furnaces, a lot of us are still using 80+ furnaces. We vent them through the chimney. The big mistake that people overlook is chimneys are not vented. All right, they're not vented, and they have to be vented. All chimneys have to be vented now. All right, and if you're not going to vent your chimney, you're going to risk a lot of deterioration in the chimney from the condensation and the acids from the water tank and the furnace venting into the chimney, and you're going to have that chimney erode, and you're going to be doing work to the chimney to keep that up. All right, so we've dealt with chimneys that were in bad shape, and sometimes depending on what we have, we'll just run a 90+ furnace, which we run it out the wall, and then we'll convert that water tank to a power vented water tank or an electric water tank, which means we'll bypass the chimney altogether. So if we bypass the chimney, that means we don't have to put a chimney liner in there. We put a cap on top of the chimney. It's pretty much dormant, and we're running that 90+ furnace and either the electric water tank or the gas power vented water tank. Okay, so sometimes you have to look at those chimneys because, when you line a chimney, if you're going to keep a traditional 80+ furnace and a traditional gas water tank into a chimney liner is going to be around $700, and that's cheap. So if you get someone to do it, you need a roofer to go up there to run it down. You need to do new B venting in the basement. So you're looking minimum $700 for a liner. So that's why people are using 90+ furnaces. They're using electric water tanks and just bypass the whole chimney and the chimney liner. Okay, so those are the big areas I look for. The other thing is kitchens and bathrooms. I think they get overlooked. I think we just take a look at it. We walk through, we're looking at a prospective house. I open up every drawer, every cabinet door, because a lot of times it's just beat up, it's old. Maybe half of it's functional, the other half isn't. And you have to make a determination where, do I leave it? Do I fix it? Of course, if you're going to flip a house, it's a little bit differently. Maybe you can leave the old furnace, you can leave the old windows. But if you're looking to buy and hold and run this through, kitchens, okay? So I find Depot has competitive cabinets for kitchens and countertops. And if you want to do higher end stuff, you certainly can. All right. So, but know what kitchens cost, because those costs have went up as well. The bathrooms, clawfoot bathtubs, I can't stand those for rental properties. Okay. Number one, the tenants have to step up into them. They're usually pretty high. So when you have children and so forth, you got to step up into them. Number two, you have 2 or 3 shower curtains trying to enclose that to keep the water in, and they always leak. They always leak. And then where do you put your soaps and shampoos and so forth? So you have some sort of makeshift shelving in there. And of course, your round shower rod that hangs from the ceiling is usually in bad shape. The shower pole itself, they just never work out on a rental property. Rarely do they work out. So sometimes owners bypass that and think everything is good. But you're going to have tenants that see that, and it's kind of a turnoff. Okay, so I always look for that to make sure what's in there is their traditional shower. But those are the big factors. Yes, you're checking the basement to see if there's water in the basement, any moisture and so forth, because people are big on mold. So you want to make sure you identify that right away. In a number of my basements, I have dehumidifiers that run during the spring and fall. All right, and you want to check those occasionally because you have to clean out the filters of the dehumidifiers, make sure they're running. Sometimes you'll go back and the tenants unplug them. They think they're drawing all this power. So just have a good conversation with your tenant and explain to them the benefits of the dehumidifier. Keep that basement nice and dry. Okay. As far as products that I use, if we start with roofing again, that's really up to you and your roofer. All right. I think, there's different name brands of shingles and so forth, but I think that's more personal choice. I just wouldn't be a fan of re-roofing when there's already 2 or 3 or 4 layers on there. I'm just not a fan of that. All right. And plus you want to stay code compliant. And also, if you're going to do a full roof, make sure you get a city permit. So a lot of times we can sneak by and do it, but on your next C of O, if they see a new roof up there, they're going to look at the records to see if you pulled a permit. And if you didn't pull a permit, they can get on you a little bit and cause some problems for you. Okay, so spend a couple $100 for a permit. You don't need a permit if you do repair. Okay, so if you do half a roof and then wait 3 or 4 years, do another half a roof, that's fine. But for the full roofs, just get the permit. When it comes to flooring, I think another mistake for flooring is I see carpet on the first floor. I'm not a big fan of carpet on the first floor for obvious reasons. It does get dirty faster, and there's issues with the carpet. I see my carpet ripped up and so forth. So when I go through and quote for rehabs, or if I'm looking myself, rarely will I carpet the first floor. I'll carpet the bedrooms, and when I carpet the bedrooms, I don't use carpet pad. I'll take Viking tapestry carpet from Depot. I throw it in there, and if it lasts 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years, great. Okay, it's cheap. You're looking at $150 to $200 for a bedroom, and that's all I want to do is cover up the imperfections on the floor, cover up what's on the floor, and lay that down. Okay, so don't worry about padding and tack strips and all that, unless if you're in an area that's going to sustain it and justify it. So you want to rehab to your area. What I like to do is on my D properties that I have and I want to keep, I try to rehab them to a C property. And then on a C property, I try to rehab to a B property, because when people look at properties and I want my property to look better than the rest. Okay, I know I can't compete with Park Avenue, but in a particular area where I'm at, and for similar areas, I want mine to be the best, because if mine's the best, I'm going to attract the best tenant. If my rehab is 1,000 or 2,000 more than normal, I'll get that back. Okay, why would they move? All right, so keep that in mind. Yes, we want to make money, but with real estate, it's long-term money. You know, rarely can we get money up front and make it a killing right away, unless if you're flipping or wholesaling. But for buying holds, you want that long-term, you want that tenant relationship, and you want your stuff to work. And when that happens and you have a good relationship with people, they're going to spread your name out there. They're going to tell friends and family. And then when you have other openings, you're going to get those phone calls. So-and-so rents from you. They like renting from you. I was wondering if you had any places. Okay, that happens all the time. I still have former tenants call me 5-10 years later. I kept your phone number. What do you have? You know, and then we'll look up in the system, because usually I forget who they are. And as long as they were a favorable tenant and left on good terms, I'd be happy to rent to them again. And in this day and age, with the landlord-tenant laws, with the restrictions that are placed on us, the barriers we have to go through to even find a good tenant and be able to background them appropriately, you definitely want good referrals from people, and some of your past tenants that were good, take them back. Okay, so they just want a nice place. I'm not saying to go overboard, but you do want a nice place. So laminate flooring, I still use the Allure flooring depending where I am. That's a much cheaper option of flooring for you. Not that it's much cheaper for the material itself, but as far as the labor wise, you can lay that pretty quickly. You can save money there. I've been using a lot of life-proof flooring, and when you go to life-proof flooring, you're jumping up in costs, and you're jumping up in labor. But that is a much better material. Again, both of these are at Home Depot. It's better material. It looks better. It's thicker. I think it's going to wear better. And using the life-proof flooring, and even in my C properties, I've been using that and kind of getting away from the Allure. But those are two options that are pretty hardy. And in either of those cases, if they get damaged really bad, you could have your person cut out a section and replace it. Okay, there's kind of a little bit of process to that, but you can do that. I don't use linoleum, those long sheets of linoleum for bathroom and kitchens. I don't use them for floors. They get ripped all the time. So I don't use that. As far as the painting, yeah, David, the paint guy from Depot has been really good. He's a good resource for everybody. But Depot has been great for painting. Obviously, if you buy in volume and so forth, you'll get some good deals at Depot for painting. Okay, and I think painting is probably the most reasonable as far as all the contractors out there. There seems to be a lot of painters out there. When I switch back to bathrooms, don't get that $99 special toilet. All right, spend $130, $140, $150 for a toilet. A lot of our calls, if I were to say the after-hour calls for emergencies, a lot of them have to do with the toilets being clogged. And I think if you get those cheapy toilets, you're going to have a greater chance of having issues with the toilet. And to save $30 to do that, and if you get an after-hour call because of a toilet malfunction, there goes your $30. Okay, so we definitely spend anywhere from $130 to $150 for a decent toilet that's going to last. Same with your fixtures for faucets, your bath vanity faucet, your kitchen faucet. Stay away from the plastic stuff. In my experience, tenants are a little bit rougher and harder on stuff, so you want to get steel faucets. Okay, I like Moen, Delta, a good name brand that's steel, that's going to last. And again, same concept. You're going to spend $20, $30 more, but it's going to last a long time. I just don't want after-hour calls. Okay, after-hour calls is what gets into your budget and takes away your profits. With that said, too, make sure your furnace filters are clean and up to date. I always put 1 or 2 extra new filters on top of the filter box. So when you or your guys are out there doing some work and there's a dirty filter, you need to go out to get another filter. You already have 1 or 2 there. You just throw it in there. Okay. I've been to so many houses that there's no filter at all. And if there's no filter at all, your blower motor is going to get clogged, seized up, and you're going to have a pretty expensive repair. Okay, so definitely do that. So we talked about flooring, carpeting, paint, cabinets. The big thing with cabinets and appliances is, again, find out what these things go for. Google what the prices are. Look at the measurements of base cabinets, whether it's a 24-inch, 36-inch sink base, 18-inch wall cabinet. Just kind of familiarize yourself with what these things go for. Because when you're walking through houses, you're going to say, hey, yes, I need a row of cabinets. I need a row of base cabinets. I need a countertop. So research that first. And then as long as you have some prices in mind, it's going to make it a lot easier. And then you're not going to be stuck like, oh my gosh, I got this expense. How am I going to afford it? All right. For gutters, gutters are very important. You know, I've been using Gutter Express. I don't know if anyone else has used them. I think they're out of Webster. I haven't met anybody from there, but it's all been email. They've done about 15 properties of mine. Very efficient, good. Prices are good. I mean, they're doing a great job. So for full house gutters, we overlook this a lot as landlords. And that's very important when you're inspecting homes, to make sure the gutters are operational, make sure they're clean, because with gutters and the issues with gutters, you know, they can pull fascia soffit off the house.
Got treats.
What's that? What's that, Joe?
Oh,
Sorry. Hit the mic.
Okay. So gutters, your biggest contributor to water in the basement. Water in the basement, mold, and so forth. So really take a look at the gutters. Don't underestimate that. What else? Anyone have questions so far? Because I just rambled for a while.
Yeah, I'll go, Pat. Can you
Sure.
hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I didn't know if I was turned on. So I have a couple of properties, and I'm new to being a landlord. And one of the properties, all of the gutters, the downspouts went into drains that went into like a main drain under the basement. And some of the basement had been torn out. It looked like they had clogs down there. And the previous owner just bypassed all of the pipes that had drained it away. And they put, you know, the little scoop things on to take it like out into the driveway, creating ice. And I put little caps over all of the holes that went down those pipes. I really would prefer to drain all of my gutters down through those, but I'm afraid to because of the fact that the previous owner disconnected them all. Do you have any thoughts around that, or is that anything you've seen in an old home?
Yeah. And that's quite common. A lot of times, those are the storm sewers where you'll have the outside rainwater mix in with the inside water. It all goes together under the basement and out. Okay. So the storm sewers, if they're capped off, it's probably because there's a blockage in there. And instead of the landlord trying to snake out the blockage, risk doing some damage with the snake, or maybe they tried to clear the blockage and couldn't, they just bypass that. They'll cap it. Because you want to cap it. If you don't cap it, kids will put rocks in there, and debris will get in there, and then they run the gutters out away from the house. Okay, so I find it easier to run it away from the house than spending time trying to clear that. But if you're going to dump water out in the driveway, that's going to be a liability problem. So sometimes you have to reconfigure the gutter, and where your downspout comes down, plug that up and do another downspout at the other end of the gutter, or just run a section to the backyard under the front porch. But you want to keep that water away from the walkable areas.
Okay.
Okay. But that's
Well,
really important with that.
That's kind of what I've been trying to do, but the easiest thing for me would have been to just go directly into the sewers too. I'm just afraid to do that, and I think with good reason.
Well, I mean, if you have a pretty good guy that's reasonable, that understands what you want to do, yeah. I mean, they can put a snake down there, so your snake and see what's going on. And even these guys will have cameras. So you're going to pay for it, but at least you'll see what's going on with the line. So a lot of times you can get those lines clear, but
Yeah.
sometimes you can't, and sometimes it's just not worth it.
Okay.
All right. I mean, to run a gutter another 20 feet, cap that, I mean, that's cheap.
Yeah.
Cheap.
All right.
You know? Any other questions so far as what we talked about? Nothing. All right. But this, I mean, the last 2 weeks seems to be new people coming here, and again, just not knowing how we run things, why we run things the way we do. And then when tenants call and complain about certain issues, well, I didn't know. And so I just want to eliminate that with everybody, especially with the new investors, to really do your due diligence. And the big thing is, again, buy right and know about these repairs. Another thing that I see is that to save money, landlords will paint floors, usually bedroom floors. They'll just paint it, and it looks wonderful when you got nice brown exterior paint on the floors. And they're painting like over hardwood floors that are just so beat up. Doesn't make sense to refinish the hardwood floors, so they're painting it. It looks good for about a week. All right, because when the tenants start moving dressers and beds and so forth, the flooring is going to get all ripped up. You're going to have peeling paint all over. So definitely do not paint your floors. Okay, if you're selling your home and you're selling it within a week or two, and not even a week or two, but if it's vacant and you're selling and you want to paint those floors, hey, go ahead. That's your choice. But as housing providers, I don't want any painted floors anywhere. First, second floor. Definitely do not paint the basement for obvious reasons with moisture and the fact of how concrete is. The likelihood of a basement floor peeling in the future is pretty high. So try not to paint your basement floors. I have painted a few on some of my flips, but they're a little bit nicer flips, and the basements were nice and dry, and it looked great. So I have done that. Keep in mind on your walls, if your walls are your concrete walls that are bare, just concrete mortar, don't paint those. Okay, because again, once you start, you're going to always have to paint your walls. Now, if there's existing paint on the walls, on your basement concrete walls, dry lock and so forth, that has to be taken care of. Make sure you prep it out good, sand it good, and paint it. And make sure you do your pointing. If you're losing mortar and there's big gaps and so forth, you're going to get hit on an inspection for the gaps in the mortar. But if it's already been painted, you're going to have to keep painting it and keep it in good shape. Sub pumps, if you have sub pumps, change them out, because the chances are the sub pump that's there is old. All right, so spend a couple $100 and throw a new sub pump in there. Last year, Depot had a special, and I bought like 10 of them at a reduced price. So I think I have like 6 left. But sub pumps in itself are not too expensive, and it's always good to keep that, because that's something we're going to overlook. Okay, so definitely want to do that. The health. Okay.
Do you put battery backups on those? Some pumps?
You can. I mean, you can do a water fed backup too. If you lose power, you have a water fed. I just found that in the city properties I have, it's not a huge issue. The sump pump, it doesn't go on too often. And out of 20 years doing this, I've never had a basement flood for a sump pump issue. I would just change it out. But if your water table is high where you are, definitely want to back up in there, whether it's battery, a water fed. In my personal home in Greece right here, I'm on a natural spring. So if my sub pump were to shut off in 15 minutes, I'm taking on water. Okay. And that doesn't matter what time of year it is. So I have a water fed pump, which is if my power is gone, my power's off, the water fed pump will work. But my neighbor just told me yesterday, he says, you should put like a camera down there or something, or an alarm, because if they fail, you should. And so it's probably a good idea for that.
Yeah.
This is my first house that I've been in where that sub pump is on every 5 minutes. It's on. Okay, so I put a brand new sub pump in and I'm on it. But in the city, again, my experience, I haven't had those issues in the city with water issues.
Okay.
But you want to be cognizant of it if you do have a sub pump, definitely for sure. All right. The exterior of homes, like I said, I'm a big new window person. It just eliminates the problem. I don't want any kids to get sick of lead paint. We still have lead paint issues in the city. I still get lawsuits sent to us for lead paint probably once or twice a year. And you see this lawsuit come in the mail. Your insurance more than likely is not going to cover it. And it's pretty scary, when you look at this thick packet. And I always give it to our attorney, and knock on wood, so far nothing has come of those. But you want to make sure when you rent your places and you have your move-in inspection, you have your pictures, always take a bunch of pictures. I take anywhere from 25 to 50 pictures, depending on how big my place is. I open up every cabinet door, every drawer, every closet. Yes, it's a pain because sometimes we're in a hurry, but you want to do your due diligence, take all those pictures. Try to replace your windows if possible, because number one is lead paint exposures with kids are at windows, the window sills, the old windows. When you go up and down 20 times, you're going to have lead paint chips in there. So try to definitely replace windows if you have to. But as far as liability reasons, you have all those move-in pictures. You want to make sure you have a current C of O, because later down the line, we've had people that moved out 5 years ago and we get a lead-based paint lawsuit served against us. And if you have good record keeping, if you have good pictures that you can pull up, and matter of fact, about pictures, when you do your move-out inspection, of course, you're taking a bunch of move-out pictures as well, because then you have to see if you return a security deposit to somebody. But if you have before pictures and after pictures, and if the after pictures show a lot of beat up stuff and lead paint and chipping and peeling paint because of tenant abuse, of course, when that person moves out, you're going to take care of that. But if that same person tries to come after you later on, at least you'll have those before and after pictures. So that's going to move the liability towards them. I also like to do inspections 2 to 3 times a year on these properties. Now, COVID kind of hurt us a little bit on that, but when you get back in the swing of things, you want to walk through 2 to 3 times a year, and you'll know your problem properties. You'll know your properties that get abused a little bit more, the tenant's really not with it. You want to get there a little bit more compared to the tenant that keeps it spotless. Maybe you can go there once or twice a year for that type person. But the reason for those inspections are to catch this. Now, on our inspections where we've had lead paint in the house and a kid's been infected, we'll take care of that. We're licensed and certified to do that, but we always do follow-ups with those houses. And more times than not, they're still banging into doorways and door frames and doors, and there's paint on the ground and floor. And we're telling the tenants, you got to clean this up, because this is where kids can get exposed. But again, when we do those inspections, what do? We photo everything first. All right. And if the tenant's not going to go ahead and take care of it, we'll take care of it. And we can always take it out of security deposit. But the whole basis is to cover yourself. Okay. Because if you do get served, to eliminate a court action, you want to have good documentation that your place was in great shape prior to move-in, and that you're also taking care of it while they're there. Okay. That's why when tenants call and they say, hey, I got a loose step, a loose basement step, I almost fell, or my handrail broke off, I don't go there in 2 weeks. Okay. More than not, we get there the same day. And again, it's liability. Okay. The phone call comes in, you have to take care of it. And if you can't take care of it, make sure you send someone over there. Okay. So those calls, the slip and falls, lead paint, those calls are still going on right now. And that's why I think when it comes to owning a home and you're going to keep it, do not have the home in your personal name. When you look at mold and lead paint, more times than not, your insurance won't cover that. But if the home's in your personal name, you're going to open yourself up to some liability. Okay, so LLCs are good for a lot of people, but follow your legal on that. Whatever your legal says, definitely follow on that. All right, so, but when it comes to maintenance items and the steps and the stairs and the hand railings, you definitely want to get on that right away. All right, like I said, I've been in business almost 20 years, have not lost a lawsuit, have not had anything major go on. Again, knock on wood. But you want to make sure to keep your house up and keep your inspections up. Okay. I was in court one time and a lady said that she got broken into because the house wasn't good, the locks weren't sufficient, and she worked for a law firm. So she did all this homework, all this investigative stuff, had all these pictures, and I was pretty overwhelmed, because I had my stuff, and I was like, wow, this person was pretty good. And what saved us was that we just had a recent Section 8 inspection. And I was able to get a copy of that Section 8 inspection, which stated that the home was habitable, X, Y, and Z was taken care of. And when the judge saw that, it was done. Case got dismissed. All right. So I'm in court right now for a lady that lives in a double. Her kitchen ceiling was leaking from the bathroom upstairs, and it was going on for a few months, which it was. We were over there every single time. It was one of those water issues that was a big nightmare, because we made a few fixes and the water kept leaking, and $6,500 later in a brand new bathroom, it was taken care of. Don't get that too often. All right. But she's in court stating that she moved out for the 2.5 months. So she wants 3 months of rent credited back to her. Her RG&E was left on. She wants credit for the RG&E. And she's got tons of receipts for food. And she's got a couple $1,000s of receipts for pots and pans, which I thought it's okay if they got wet. But so she made this big claim. She took us to court. We won the first trial at small claims court, and she appealed it. And when you appeal it, you have a trial de novo. And a trial de novo is from, you go in front of a real judge, and at the trial de novo, you have to hear the case all over again. So first time we were in small claims court, my attorney, he couldn't make it. And if you're an LLC, they want you to be represented by an attorney. You can't represent yourself. But at that first court case, they let it go. They didn't ask about an attorney. They let it go. We won. I thought it was over with. Second time comes around. So I talked to my attorney. He was with me. It was a Zoom session. We just had it last week. And so she's going into this about, again, the moving out for 3 months was a total lie. She's talking about, I have all these receipts, but didn't have time to bring them to court. We were on Zoom for 45 minutes. And the judge adjourned it, which thankfully he did. And we have a new court date in May. The only good thing about that is I have neighbors that I know and other people as witnesses that can confirm that she never moved out. And she doesn't have receipts for going out to eat and hotels and all that stuff. So I'm feeling pretty good about when the case goes on again in May, to that we're going to be favorable and win. But the whole point is, I mean, look at all this time. I mean, look at all this, right? This is 3 times now. The original court case, the first, she talked last week, and then it got adjourned. So 3 times we have to deal with this. I'm not going to get compensated for that. I mean, a major pain. I have my attorney that I have to pay. That's cost of doing business. But because we have good records and pictures and invoices, and I got every phone call that she made to us, and I got every response that we went the very next day, and all the work that we did, and I got color pictures, I'm feeling good about it. But these things happen, all right? And even with good notes, sometimes you're going to get challenged. So I can't underestimate pictures and notes and taking the time. Phone calls, all our phone calls are recorded. Again, we're a management company, so everything comes in, it's recorded. But when you get texts from people, and some of them go batty, they go batty crazy. You want to save those texts just in case if something comes up, because in court, they're an angel. They're respectful, responsible. But when you have those texts printed out and you show them to a judge, that's not going to look too good for them, okay? Because they play this game. They think they can say what they want, do what they want, and not be held responsible. So you want to be very, very careful on that. All right. So we talked about some liability. We talked about surrounding yourself with real good people that know what they're doing. Okay. Yes, your accountant, your attorney, excellent. Your real estate professional who you use, your inspector. It's a whole team. And Brent, I don't know, Brent, you're into this. I don't know if you have a team around you or just going slowly, but at least you're local. So you understand probably the laws and what's going on and the housing and prices. And you probably have some knowledge about what stuff costs. Okay.
Yeah.
You've had some unknowns that you're like, oh, I didn't know. And that happens.
Absolutely. I thought I knew everything and was comfortable, and I found out I know very little. Including with my background, I was shocked the first time somebody, when I asked for rent, came to the door with an AR-15, and the next time they came with a 9mm handgun and told me to, after swearing at me, to get out of there. So I have some learning to do, even how to handle those situations.
Absolutely. And now New York State is pushing on new admin stuff, new disclosures. So you got to keep up with this. It's not getting any easier. So I have to take off. I don't know if there's any questions at all. I know I went quick. Feel free to email me anytime. Give me a phone call anytime.
One can have some in chat.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
one quick question in chat, and
Okay.
it's about push button toilets. Have you used those, and are there a lot of repairs with those?
Yeah, stay away from them.
Okay.
Yeah. They're cool, but when they go, they're expensive.
Sounds good.
Except for the Niagara Stealth.
Niagara Stealth, yeah. How much are
That's the
Niagara
only
Stealths?
Right now they're $129. They don't have a flapper, so there's no maintenance. They're 15-year warranty on all the guts. So if they do break, your parts are free for 15 years. Comes with a wax ring and a seat.
Beautiful. Oh,
All right. Well,
all
thanks,
right.
Pat. Thank you so much for joining us. There is one other question in chat, but it's a great segue to Dave. So thank you, Pat. I'll let you get on with your day. Appreciate it, and we'll see you very soon.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Hi, Pat.
Okay. See you. Bye. See ya.
The other question was about good sealant, good paint for inside of foundation.
Well, Brett, you said it was a stone foundation and you have cracks, correct?
I have it's really big boulders that they mortared around, and
Right.
there's places where the mortar is cracked. There's some parts of the foundation where it looks like somebody coated over it and it just looks like smooth concrete, but there's cracks the full length on those. And that's something that I have no expertise in and really do need to surround myself with an expert for.
Okay. One thing we always tell people with paint is not spackle or crack filler or anything. So, paint's not going to solve your issue there where there's mortar missing or physically a crack in a boulder that's now in two pieces. You can get I would get a mason in there to look at that because you're talking structure that's holding up the house. There are concrete and repair products at Home Depot that dry really quick and really hard and really fast. But if you want to make sure you don't have a structural issue first, once you get it secured and you have those cracks filled with mortar or whatever they decide to put in there, they could put a silicone or an epoxy caulk in there possibly to seal those. You could paint it if you want. I mean, aesthetically want to paint it, or are you trying to reduce water coming through?
No, I just want to stop the few spots where a little water comes through. So I was hoping there'd be some kind of caulk gun with a product I could hit in the crack and would be good to go, or something that I could just skim coat right over it and make the cracks go away.
Skim coat right over it is not going to work. Is there water like flowing in?
There's not a lot. Every once in a while, I get a little that comes between a few of the boulders that have no more mortar left in them.
Okay. I would get somebody in to repoint those spots. I mean, you could experiment with a $10 tube of GE silicone caulk, or there's some concrete repair items, but then you might be making a problem worse, and you bring a mason in, he's going to charge you more to fix your repair and start over.
Right.
You're not going to be able to paint it with, you've got gaps in, but in essence, it's like the grout or the mortar there. You're not going to be able to paint over that with a dry lock or anything and get anything positive out of it.
All right, good. That's good to hear. That's what I was thinking, but I don't want to waste my time and money if it's probably not going to work.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to use dry lock. It's nice and heavy, and you really get a good workout.
Okay.
I came prepared to talk about interior, and first question I got was exterior. Brian mentioned that he has some clients that need to do some exterior painting.
Mhm.
This weekend is going to be great if you need a C of O, you're trying to spruce something up because you want to sell it. If you're going to paint outside, we have a product called Glidden Premium Paint on the exterior side. Temperature needs to be above 35 degrees to use that product, 35 degrees and going up and rising. So by 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, I would think tomorrow's supposed to go up to 55. Probably got from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. tomorrow. It's a good window to do exterior work. I think Sunday is supposed to be even nicer, up into the 60s. Somebody does want to do exterior work this time of year. Make sure it's above 35 degrees and the temperature is going up. You don't want to paint half an hour before sunset when the temperature is 35, because then it'll drop and your paint will fail. So Brian, do we have a hard stop at 10?
No, we can run over. I'm sure some people might have to bug out a little bit, but we can definitely go over. So go right ahead.
Okay, I've got some notes to go through.
Sure.
With paint, I sell paint. I'm talking prices today. I'm going to talk about interior. I'm going to talk about eggshell paint. Flat is $1 or $2 less. Semi-gloss is $2 or $3 more a gallon. I just use eggshell because it's a good generic. Everybody uses eggshell. So I have a $14 can of paint and a $40 can of paint. Some people just assume the $40 can of paint is the best can of paint, but you need to qualify what the job is. Brian has a customer that has student properties that get painted twice a year or every year. You're not going to want to put a $40 can of paint in there. You could buy a $14 can of paint in beige off-white color that everybody uses. Paint that every year, every other year, and you'll be very happy with that $14 can of paint. That's what it's designed for. Pat has a B or a C property paint maybe that he's going to be painting. We got a $20 to $25 can of paint, paint and primer in one. It'll work very well for something like that. Single family home in the suburbs, nice rental property, the $25 to $40 can of paint would fit that. So don't just default to the price of the paint. You qualify the job and what you're doing and where you're painting. Everything at Home Depot. I work for PPG Glidden. We have PPG and Glidden products in a wide range of price. What you get when you spend a little more on paint is you're getting better coverage, better hide, better durability. In some cases, a more vibrant color. If color's the most important thing, if the wall paint has to match that pillow that's on your sofa, buy the better quality paint because you'll get a better color. Again, if you're painting student housing, you're painting a warehouse space like a Home Depot with that 100,000 square foot of roof, $14 can of paint that they can spray up there on a job like that will be perfect. Not going to put a $40 can of paint on a warehouse. One thing you have to also factor in when you're painting is your labor. I talk to a lot of consumers in the stores, and I talk to them about is there's always people that want the least expensive paint. Pay $5 on a gallon of paint. They put the first coat on Saturday and they put the second coat on Sunday. They're a really good painter. That second coat takes them 2 hours, let's say. They saved $5. They're putting 2 hours of their own labor in, so they paid themselves $2.50 an hour to do that work. If you are paying somebody to come in and do that painting for you, you'll pay much more than what you've saved for that $5. So I always recommend buy a better quality paint. It'll save you time, which is going to save you labor, because the cost of paint is very inexpensive compared to the overall project. The labor is the most expensive one. Questions on paint and which one you would use? Yes, Brett.
I have one. I'm going back outside again. If I want to paint a porch and steps, do you have a recommended paint?
If you're shopping at Home Depot, they have a porch and floor paint. It comes in a high gloss. It also comes in a satin finish. It's made by Behr. My company doesn't have a floor paint in there. So just ask the Home Depot associate for a porch and floor paint. That's what the name is on it. I usually
Okay.
default to the low luster one because the gloss one, when it gets wet, can be slippery. Luster one's not as slippery. So some people like the shiny finish, but I always defer to the lower luster one just for safety concerns. It's just as durable.
Okay, thanks.
I got a quick question, Dave.
Yes.
Pat touched on floors before, and I do see that a lot, not only in rental properties, but it seems like in North Winton Village area, a lot of houses I look at that are owner occupied, a lot of floors are painted, and he's right. Even after 50 showings in that house, it starts to look bad. And is there a good paint for painting hardwood floors? And if you're covering up like pet urine or water damage, is there any kind of prep that should be done before you paint over it?
Okay, if you're painting over a hardwood floor, I'm going to assume that at one point there was a polyurethane on it, something shiny.
Right.
If 100% of that is not off or removed, your paint's not going to be able to soak into the wood. So that spot in the corner that nobody ever walked on that still is shiny and glossy, you're going to paint on that, and the paint is going to fail. Probably multiple spots on there that will fail. It would be a matter of sanding it down so you have, ideally, sand it down so you have bare wood everywhere. I recommend either inside on a floor or outside on your deck is the water test. Get a little water, sprinkle some water on the floor. If the water beads up, there's something there that will prevent the paint from soaking in. The water soaks into your deck or say a hardwood floor once you've cleaned it off, then you could put a paint on it. The biggest challenge I see with painting a floor like that is people tend to like a darker color that looks more like a hardwood floor. And the darker colors show all the scrapes and scuffs. There are paints designed for floors, the paint that Brett would use on his porch. You could use that on there. People tend not to be patient. I fall into that category sometimes. Painting with a latex paint, dry to the touch, a couple hours or overnight, but that film doesn't fully cure for anywhere from 15 to 30 days. Paint guy is going to tell you, okay, sand that floor down so all the old shiny finish is off, make sure that the wood can accept the paint, paint it, walk away from that room for 2 to 3 weeks to let the paint fully cure. The paint will be nice and hard. And 99% of people aren't going to want to do that. They want to paint that floor today and use the room tomorrow, just like painting a wall. Yeah. It's prep, and then it's not dragging furniture around on it and things like that. Buy a portion floor paint, do the job right, and don't drag the furniture around on it. Is the best recommendation.
Okay.
A lot of people will put an area rug in the middle where it gets all the traffic, and paint will look good around the outside edge.
Yeah, I see it on doors too, where there's been heavy polyurethane coatings over the years, or even some sort of varnish, and then they paint over it, and in certain areas around the handles, it just is flaking off within weeks on it. It looks worse.
For like a wall or a door, we have a primer called Gripper that sticks very, very well. It sticks to all sorts of problem surfaces. You still need to clean the dirt off. I would still want you, if it's got polyurethane on it, say an old door, to sand it down and get the dust off. Paint it with Gripper and put a top coat on it. Gripper's not designed for floors, so
yeah,
can't use it there. Sounds like it would work well, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I use the Gripper in our kitchen, my own kitchen, on the ceramic tile.
Yeah, yep.
And a very glossy ceramic tile, and it's been on there for 15 years. I don't have a single flaw in it. It's fantastic stuff.
Great. It sticks to your hands. It's hard to wash off when you're done doing the painting. It really works.
Yeah.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the applicator that you put the paint on with. Please don't buy the $3 plastic handle brush. Home Depot, they sell them. They have a purpose if you're painting outside, the rocks that line your driveway, or maybe painting a deck, or Brett when he's painting 2 steps on his stairs. If you're painting your walls inside your house, buy a good brush, spend in the $10 range for a good brush. It will allow you to, your paint job will go quicker. When you go to paint on the wall, that better brush will hold more paint. So when you're cutting it around the edges, you can get the job done quicker. It'll be smooth. It's not going to lose bristles. So with the applicators, don't buy the 6-pack of applicator for $6.99. And grab the fuzz on that applicator. You can pull things off very easily. They can leave a mess on the wall. My preference is there's knit applicators, there's microfiber, and there's woven. I prefer the woven ones. I've always had success with them with latex paint. 3/8 inch nap woven roller does very well by my products. It gives a good surface, nice look. Like, do you like a Ford, Chevy, or a Dodge thing? But, the woven ones seem to work very well with latex products. They hold the right amount of paint when you load them up with paint. They put the paint on the wall very well. I'm going to do a roller on bookshelves, like the bookshelves behind me, if I wanted to change that. Foam rollers are really good for getting a very smooth surface. I'm going to put a high gloss lacquer on a bookshelf that you got at a yard sale, you want to repaint it. A foam roller can do a great job for something like that, or doing doors. You have to remember, a foam roller doesn't hold as much paint, so you have to reload it a little more frequently. Big problems I see is people watch HGTV. They think you can load your roller up with paint and paint a whole wall with one roller full of paint. Hold the roller handle with 2 hands and they're squeezing every last ounce out of it. You can do maybe a 2 foot by 2 foot or 3 foot by 3 foot square with one roller full of paint. Reloading it and use the better quality rollers. One paint tip for the landlords. Pat uses a beige and a gray, the same beige and gray every time. There's Home Depot sells, I call it a hot dog roller, a sausage roller. It's a thinner roller. They come in 4-inch and 6-inch. If you're good at painting and you're painting, Pat's painting his gray over gray when he flips over an apartment, he can probably take that little sausage roller. He can get close enough to the corners and the edges at the top. He's painting gray over gray, and he might not have to cut him with a brush. You can save some time by using one of those little skinny rollers, and instead of brushing all around the edges, use the roller. You can save a pretty good amount of time doing that. Colors, like I said, Pat uses the same beige and the same gray every time. They're very popular colors. Earth tones tend to cover better when you paint versus the bright, vibrant colors. I don't know if anybody's ever painted a room a bright yellow or a bright red. They can look really great when you're done, but it takes 2 or 3 or 4 coats of paint to get it on to look good. When you paint it over again, it's hard to paint over a really dark color like that. Oh, are you?
Yeah,
you're saying
your audio is a little funky. It kind of a little delay, cuts out a little bit.
Okay, I'll work on getting a headset for the next one then.
There you go.
Another question I get a lot is about primers. For primer, my default is if you ask the question, do I need to prime? The answer is probably yes. Like, hey, can I wear this shirt for the 3rd day in a row, or do I wash it? The answer is probably wash it if you ask that question. If you think you need to prime, please use a primer. It will save you all sorts of time. I would always recommend priming new sheetrock, or if you patch a wall or you patch something, definitely prime that. Plaster needs to be primed. Our gripper works very well on plaster. Want to paint over paneling? Again, paneling can be primed. Gripper works well with that. If you've taken wallpaper off, you want to use an oil-based primer over that. Everybody thinks they've gotten every bit of the wallpaper paste off, but definitely need to prime if you have wallpaper. Water stains, cigarette stains from smoking, things like that. Oil-based primers tend to seal those very well. Brian, your question earlier, if somebody has a excuse me, a dog or a cat, they've got some urine problems on a floor, an oil-based product is best for sealing that.
Okay.
Everybody has their own cleaner ideas. Some people say white vinegar kills the odors and stuff before you paint those.
What about most people on this call have got city rental properties, and you see a lot of issues in bathrooms. There's either no ventilation or poor ventilation for showers, and there's probably no green board in there. So they're painting over, plaster walls, and you get mold that builds up. Would you obviously go with like a glossier paints for in there? Is there something that cleans up well that would shed some of the moisture quicker?
Yeah, the ideal is to have some ventilation. If there's no ventilation, always want to go with a semi-gloss paint because it's got a shiny, slippery surface. Mold and mildew is just a living organism and it wants to grab onto something. And if you put semi-gloss, which is shiny, it can't grab on there as well. So you'll have a excuse me. You'll have less mold and mildew if you've got a semi-gloss surface.
Okay, great, thank you.
Pat mentioned, old windows with lead paint before, and it's kind of a third rail to talk about lead. I've taken and was certified with the OSHA course for, you have to put a sign up that you're doing lead work in the house and sealing the house and everything. I've gone through the class. I've actually done that work to get the certification. So, lead can be a challenge. If you do stay with wooden windows, like Pat mentioned, you're going to paint over them. You can paint over to encapsulate that. Use a better quality paint. Our gripper primer sticks very well. It's not a magic bullet by any stretch of the imagination, but you want to use a better quality paint when you do that because a cheap paint is just going to wear right off and your lead paint is going to be exposed again. Paint that's underneath. A good option if you're going to try and repaint something that might have lead in it. That gripper primer will give you a really good seal on there. Anybody have any questions on paint?
I've got one more.
Sure, Brett.
You talked about venting bathrooms. I'm thinking that I probably need to vent all of my kitchens too, because when I repaint in the kitchen, I have a heck of a time cleaning the grease off and getting paint on. And I'm wondering if there's a recommended cleaner and if you should always put primer back over after you've seen grease stains on your paint.
I don't know if a vent is going to solve your grease problem. I'm guessing it's somebody with a fry pan that's throwing some hamburger and the grease is splattering on the wall behind the stove. Is it that kind of issue?
Yes, it's where the paint is actually yellowed, that there's been so much fat and grease from cooking that's gotten in the air that the entire ceiling and the entire wall is kind of yellowed, and in some places it's run down.
Okay. Yeah. I like simple green. There's a product at Home Depot called TSP. It's TSP substitute. It's a liquid or a powder you can mix with water. And, that will help clean it off. You just need to clean it right down till that grease is gone because you really can't paint over dirt or grease. Not what it's designed for. If you have to scrub that much to get that grease off, I would definitely prime it first and then top coat it.
Most of my larger property managers that have a lot of units gave up on painting there, and they actually put a backsplash of some kind there to catch the grease. So there are one-piece ones you can get. There are funky ones that I've seen people put sheet metal up. I've seen people use FRP panel. I've seen people tile it. If you tile it, which is what a lot of people choose to do, use a very dark grout and make sure it is a pre-mixed, fortified, sealed grout so you don't have to maintain it and it won't stain.
I've also used a spray product called Crud Cutter, and I've gotten that at Home Depot, and that works real well. There's no odor to it. It's not like Goof Off or Goo Gone where it has a heavy chemical odor. There's no scent really to it at all, and that cuts through grease pretty well to be able to paint over it. Matter of fact, I've even sprayed that on my tiles that have the Glidden gripper on it, and it doesn't do anything to the paint, but it takes the grease right away from there. It's a really good product.
Wow, that's some good advice from everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. I have a quick question. There's always in these houses, there's some asbestos wrapped around a stack or around HVAC in the basement, and we always say, put some tape over it or throw some paint on that tape, the asbestos tape, to cover it. Obviously, people want to use whatever the cheapest thing out there just to get it encapsulated. Is there anything you recommend, from a safety factor, really seal that in?
I know they have 2 halves of a plastic shell that you can put around a water heater.
Mm-hmm.
Try and encapsulate that. I have a neighbor that does HVAC, and he will tell people if it's in good shape and it's not falling apart or flaking or anything, just don't touch it, leave it alone. He recommended what you did. He said duct tape around it. You could paint it if you wanted to, but just painting over it is not going to solve the problem. The asbestos is flaking.
Right.
It's not designed to, that film isn't designed to hold that together.
Yeah. When I have clients who are prepping their house for me to sell it, and, I tell them we'd also like to open this up to the opportunity of FHA mortgages. So we need to encapsulate some of that, and I tell them get a good heavy paint over it to seal it in there. But yeah, if they can duct tape it, use the foil tape, something like that. But just to know if usually they find some old gallon of paint they had around from some other job and use that. But I like to know it's really encapsulated. I want it to pass inspection as well.
Yeah, I don't know what each different locality would have for zoning for encapsulating something like that.
Okay.
Depends on the temperature. If the temperature is changing significantly on that can affect the paint film. My default would be an exterior paint, semi-gloss, the highest quality you could find.
Okay. Very good.
Your local zoning might have a different they would recommend you take it out.
Yeah, right. Any other questions? Well, Dave, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation.
Sure. Sorry for the late start for you.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all. It's Friday. It's payday.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Great. Well, with that, I appreciate everybody sticking around. We've gone a little bit over. Any other general questions about make readies for apartments, or any comments anyone wants to make for others? Good advice? No? All right. Well, I'll turn everybody loose on their Friday. I'm going to take a quick collection for bail money for Colleen, since she's down in Key West. She may need something this weekend, so you can PayPal me or Venmo. No, I hope she has a great time, and we'll see her back here in 2 weeks for our next topic, and we'll get an email out later on this coming week. So thank you, everybody, and hope you have a great weekend.
Too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.